Hey everyone, welcome to Circuited Brewers. Our channel is all about electric brewing. We do electric brew days, how-to tips, and product reviews just like this one. In this episode, we are going to review the Blichmann Brewvision, and that's coming up right after this. Now, before we get started with the review, I do want to be completely upfront and honest, full disclosure. Blichmann did send me a couple of these units to do a review on. They are not paying me to do the review. There's no agreement that I give them a good review. There's no agreement that I give them, any kind of kudos or whatever for making the product. But I just wanted to let you guys know that I did not purchase them. They were sent to me to review. So I'm going to do my best to give you guys the information to make a well-informed decision of whether you want to purchase this unit or not. So what is the Brewvision, you might ask yourself? Well, in a simplest sense, it is a digital or Bluetooth thermometer. But the software that they've included with it actually lets you do a lot more. Some of the software features that we'll get into are you can actually import your recipes from Beersmith. And if you don't have a Beersmith account, you can also put in hop additions and mash steps. If you're brewing from a kit or if you're brewing an extract batch, you can put in your own hop additions without having to have any Beersmith account or any other software besides this particular device. One of the first things that I want to talk about, and it might not seem like a big deal to some people, but I don't know, if you've ever went to the store and bought a pair of scissors and then need a pair of scissors to get your scissors out of the package, that's really annoying. Well, one of the things that they did with their packaging is that they put one staple in the top, and it is not a heat sealed package. So essentially, this is just a clamshell package. So if I open it up and pull it apart, basically what you have is you have all of the components inside of the package. Why this really kind of means something to me is that whenever this thing is not being used in your brew day, you want to take it off of the kettle so that it doesn't get wet if you wash it or whatever. And this packaging actually serves as a nice little piece of protection that you can put it back into. You can take this out. Put it back into that, snap it back up, throw it up on your brew shelf, and then your unit is protected. Now, getting into what comes in the package itself, you've got the Brewvision unit, which is the Bluetooth and thermometer portion of it. You've got the batteries that come with it. Next, it comes with the actual unit that you put in your kettle, the thermometer piece. There's a compression grommet, an O-ring for the outside unit, an O-ring for the inside unit. You've got the locking nut for the inside, the cap that secures over the outside to keep it waterproof whenever the unit's not in place. And then you've also got labels that come with it. Now, installation of the unit, if you have a Blichmann kettle already, it's pretty straightforward. All you have to do is just simply remove your brewmometer, put this unit in. Basically, you put the exterior piece on the outside. There is a flat piece on top that you want to make sure is horizontal because that is the way that the actual unit snaps on. I don't know, personally, I'd like to have it so that it says Blichmann across the top of it. And then there is the nut inside and the three washers. There's the compression washer that goes on the shaft. Then there's the silicone O-ring that goes over the outside. And then there's another gasket. I think it's probably Buna rubber or something like that seals off the other portion of it. And then you just tighten that down. And I found that when I tightened it down, it seems like it's staying pretty loose, and then it reaches a point where it gets pretty tight, and I wouldn't go much tighter than that just because you don't want to damage anything. So to retrofit this into a kettle that does not have a brewmometer hole, because it is a 1/2 inch hole, you would need to find a place on your kettle that you want to install it. In my situation, I have electric kettles, so it's not an issue of external heat. But Blichmann does say if you can't hold your hand underneath of this unit for 5 minutes and not have it hot enough, you can't hold your hand there, you are going to need some sort of shielding for the unit. Otherwise, it could get damaged from heat. One tip that I can tell you is if you use a framing square across the top of the kettle and use that to make alignment marks with a port that's already on your kettle, you can kind of install it in a lined up fashion so that it's not off center. Just kind of a neat little trick that I've learned. And then you can use a permanent marker to make those marks. And then of course, after you get done with that, you can use some alcohol to take it off. So one other tip that I would tell you is if you have a center punch or even a screwdriver or something like that that has the ability for you to give it a little tap with a hammer, it helps to put a little dent in the kettle so that your drill bit doesn't walk all over the place. I like to drill a pilot hole before using the step bit, and I've got a 1/2-inch step bit that I'm using, and that device actually makes a hole that's perfect for the size of the shaft on the thermometer itself. Once you're done with drilling the holes, then you simply put the unit in just like you would as if you were putting it into a Blichmann kettle. One other installation note is that there is an adapter if you already have a port on your kettle that is a female pipe thread. They do make an adapter where you can actually screw this unit into a adapter that will go into the port and then allow you to screw in the thermometer unit into that fitting so you don't have to drill any extra holes in your kettle if you already have a threaded port in your kettle. All right, so I've downloaded the software onto my iPhone, and running through all of the different items on here, there's a dashboard, and that shows you what the status of your sensors are. Monitor, that actually allows you to monitor all the different probes that you have if you have any. You can switch between all of your vessels. You can add up to 7 of them to the program. Here's where your recipes would be at whenever you bring them in. Either you bring them in from the Beersmith cloud or you actually add them manually yourself. That's how you would do that there. Graphing, this is where it allows you to graph your temperatures. You can see here, I've already paired one of the units. You can see a graph there that shows what took place whenever I was testing the unit out. Settings, this is where you actually add your recipes. You can add your recipes there. You can also pair your devices. So that's what we're going to talk about now. Okay, so we've got both of the bases installed for Brewvision on both the mash tun and the brew kettle. So we want to add those devices to the program. So we're going to click plus, and then we're going to choose multi-kettle, and then we will choose the boil kettle because I already have one installed on the mash tun. So now what it says you do is you take and you push the button on the back. There's a blue button back in here. You push that, you turn the unit on first by holding down the button for about 2 seconds on the front. You'll see the blue light begin to flash. Then you're going to push the blue button on the back, and then this is the actual pair button so that it will begin to search for the iPhone and allow us to pair the device together. So after a few seconds, the device is found, and then you'll see that the boil kettle device firmware version it gives you on there, it gives you the signal strength and the battery life on there. All right, so as you guys can probably hear, I've got the pumps running and everything. We're going to see how the program works on a brew day. Started out with my mash tun full and my hot liquor tank full of water for the appropriate volumes that I need for the batch of beer that I'm working on. And I'm heating them up to temperature right now. One interesting thing is that the temperature probes on my system, my inlet is actually at the top of my mash tun, and it is reading 63 degrees right now, and the temperature sensor on the Brewvision is reading 54 degrees. So there's a pretty good drop in temperature in the actual equipment itself. So that'll be interesting to see is whenever it comes up how quickly the differential between the two of them shows up. Incidentally, I did speak to someone at Blichmann because I didn't see anything in the software about calibration. And as you know, with electronics, if there's a batch of electronics, there could be some variations between 1 or 2 of them. So even though these units are calibrated from the factory, there can be some variation in them, and they are actually working on a calibration component to the app right now. So there should be something coming soon for that, and I'll give you an update on that as soon as I know more about it. All right, so I mashed in with the grain and everything, and the grain was a little colder than what my calculations were in my brewing software. So it's actually dropped down a little bit below what the range is, and I'll just show you what that looks like. It sent me a notification saying it was out of the range. So this is what that looks like. So it's saying that it's out of the range, and my system will bring it back up, and we'll get to the proper range, but I just wanted to show you that alarm that comes up there to show you it's out of range. All right, so something I wanted to show everyone. My PID is actually showing 152, and the Brewvision software is showing 151.9, and it hops around between 151.7 and 151.9. So every time the element kicks on and warms it up a little bit, it jumps by about 2 degrees and then falls back down. So I would say that's pretty accurate based on what my PID is showing and what the temperature reading is showing on the Brewvision software. So that's pretty cool. All right, so the mash is complete, and one thing I wasn't sure about, and I just let it run to see what would happen. I didn't see anything about ramping up the temperature to mash out, and that's something that normally occurs with Beersmith. It tells you to ramp up the temperature. The program from Blichmann did not say anything about that, so I'm going to go ahead and ramp up the temperature. And I'm sure it'll probably set off some alarms, but I need to ramp it up so I can do my mash out and everything. But that was one thing that I think they probably need to add. And I don't know how that translates over. I have my system in Beersmith set up a certain way for all my vessels and, a Herm system and all that, and all my figures are in there. But it doesn't appear that that stuff came over here. And maybe it would work better if I had a 3-vessel system, 3 of the Brewvisions on each, one on each vessel. But I don't know for sure, so I'm going to go ahead and ramp up, and then I'll start my sparge out, and then I'll be back whenever I start my boil. All right, so as I suspected, it started giving me warnings that the temperature was out of range for the mash and everything, so it looks like maybe something that they'll need to do improvement-wise in the software, how it reads from Beersmith. Obviously, I know they're going to be watching this, so hopefully they can figure out some fixes for that, but I'm actually doing the mash out now, and then I'll be back once I reach my volume, and we'll look at how long it takes to boil. One thing that I've noticed pretty cool about the program so far is that with the 1/10 of a degree readings on the program, I'm seeing every time the element of my electric system kicks on and off, it fluctuates by about 2/10 of a degree. So there's a bunch of spikes and dips and spikes and dips and spikes and dips in the program graph. Interesting so far. See you soon. All right, everyone. So the sparge is over. I've collected all the wort. You can probably hear the kettle right now coming up to temperature. According to this, it's at 186.3. So there were a couple of little annoyances when I was doing the sparge that I think probably should be fixed in the software. My mash tun kept giving me a warning that it was out of temperature range, out of temperature range. The timer was over. I think maybe that they should look at taking the warnings of, temperature, the mash temperature being below a set point or being below an alarm point off, or turn them off once the mash is completed. The other thing is that there's no real way to adjust the warnings, if you will, or the notifications. It'd be nice if they could put something in there where you could have it, vibrate more. It kind of vibrates once, no real audible. It shows something on the screen. So, I mean, if you're, doing something and your phone's in your pocket or whatever, and you don't pay attention, you could possibly miss one of those. Minor annoyance, nothing that's a deal breaker really, but it's just one of those things that I kind of picked up on. So once everything is completely up, see, there's one of those notifications saying that the mash is out of range again. So, I'm not mashing anymore, so it's a little bit annoying. But so I will give you my findings once the boil and everything is done, and give you some recommendations on who I think can benefit from it, and just like my overall rating or overall findings of what I think about the product. So far, everything seems pretty cool. I like the data that it gathers, so I'll let you know what my ultimate findings are whenever the boil is done. So I was able to brew a batch of beer last night with the software and the Brewvision modules. A couple things I found out that are of interest. When you're done with the mash, or when you're done using one of the products, you want to make sure you turn it off, because if you don't, you're going to continue to get annoying out of range warnings. So I found that out. I mashed out, and then found that I kept getting warnings about my mash being too low because the temperature obviously had dropped. So I found that when I turned off the unit that was on the mash tun, that I didn't get those warnings. The other thing that I found was that it was awesome for graphing the Brewday, and I wanted to share that with you guys, but I also wanted to check the battery life on it. So in an attempt to do that, I left the unit on the boil kettle all night long. And what happened was I forgot to stop the graph for my Brewday. I'll still show you guys some footage, but it'll be on the phone and probably not as easy to see. But it was very interesting to see in my electric system that it graphed every time the element kicked on. It would adjust by probably, I think, 0.2 degrees, which is kind of interesting. I never really thought that it would show that much detail, but it's very detailed. So here's my recommendation. If you are a person that is starting out either extract or doing partial mashes or even starting out doing all grain, I think this is a great product for you. And the reason why is because you can walk away from your boil kettle and this device will alert you whenever you're coming up to boil temperature. Also, it will allow you to chart your mash. I know a lot of times whenever guys are first starting out, they're like, I don't know why my beer didn't ferment down to whatever it was supposed to be. Well, they may have mashed too high. Somebody asks them, hey, what did you mash at? I'm striking this and that. And so with this device, you can say, okay, let me whip out the graph and take a look and say, okay, well, here was my mash. And somebody go, okay, you were supposed to mash at 152, but it showed that you were mashing at 156. So that's why your beer didn't ferment down. So it does help you try to get that information. Some people are, love to document every step of their brew day. I'm not one of those kind of people that like to write every single little detail down. But if you are the type of person, you'll love this device and it will be great for you. I really had no complaints about the device as far as installation and, hooking up the product and getting everything paired up. The only real issues that I had were software driven. There's a few things that I would like to see them add. Number one, I think that they should add something for you to adjust the way that the alarms work. There's a simple buzz and then a screen notification on there for the alarm. I'd like to maybe have something audible. I looked through all the settings and couldn't find anything. The other thing is on the importing of the beers from Beersmith, it doesn't give you a strike temperature. Now, in the manual adjustments or a manual recipe, there's a strike temperature in there. And I suppose you can go in and edit. I didn't try to edit the Beersmith recipe, but it didn't pull in that strike temperature from the Beersmith recipe. So really the only issues that I've had with it are software driven. And, quite honestly, admittedly, Blichmann is not known to be a software company. So I know that they're still working on getting all the bugs ironed out in the iPhone or Apple software. And they are going to release it in Android. But I would say that it is a product that has applications for certain folks. If you have like a BCS or any other automated brewery system that gives you readouts or is controlled by Wi-Fi, it's probably not a product for you. But if you're a propane user that does it in the garage, it's in the wintertime and you want to stay inside while your wort is coming up to temperature, I think it's absolutely awesome. If you're a brew in a bag person that wants to monitor your mash temperatures in your brew in a bag day, I know a lot of people put blankets and towels and all kinds of stuff over their kettle to hold the temperature, and this device would allow you to do that without ever even having to uncover anything. So I think the device has some uses. I think it does have some improvements that can be done on the software side. But I know for a fact that they are working on that, and that's something they'll continue to improve. So hopefully this review helped you make a decision about whether you want to purchase the product or not. Please comment below. I know that Blichmann's going to see the review because they sent the items to me to review. So let me know what other features you think that you would like to see in it, or what you think the shortcomings are, or ask questions about the product. I'll try to answer them as much as I possibly can. But, just give me an idea what you think of the product, and hopefully this helped you decide whether or not it's something that you want to purchase. So until next time, this is Brian with Circuited Brewers. We'll see you. These barbs,
You got to tighten the crap out of it because it will leak. This pump does put out quite a bit of pressure. So if you don't tighten these down real well, it will leak. So don't be too worried. I mean, obviously you want to do it by